And welcome to Tiffany Meier tonight. Senate Republicans delivering President Trump a major win on immigration enforcement overnight. Senators voting 52 to 47 just before 5 this morning to pass a roughly $70 billion bill funding immigration and customs enforcement and border patrol for the next 3 years through the end of Trump's term. The final vote nearly party line. Alaska Republican Lisa Murkowski, the only Republican to vote no. But getting there took nearly 18 hours. The Senate grinding through a marathon session known as a Vote-a-Rama, as Democrats and a handful of Republicans on some amendments pushed to use the bill to permanently ban President Trump's nearly $1.8 billion anti-weaponization fund. Senator Lindsey Graham laying out what Republicans say is actually in the bill.
There's $69.5 billion that this amendment covers, $38.6 billion for ICE to train, equip, support ICE, $108.5 million allocated for child exploitation investigations, $22.6 billion for the Border Patrol to hire, pay, train, equip personnel, $3.5 billion for improvements to border security, $5 billion to help DHS through 2029. What we're about to do is fund the Border Patrol and ICE through the entire Trump term because you wouldn't help us. America will be safer. I ask for adoption of this amendment.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer saying Republicans putting the president over the people.
After tonight's vote, it's clear to Americans that Republicans refuse to outlaw Donald Trump's $2 billion slush fund. Now the whole country can see the truth. Republicans fought like hell to please Donald Trump and his slush fund, but didn't lift a finger to help working Americans lower their costs.
And when it finally came down to it, Pennsylvania Republican Dave McCormick presiding over the final tally.
On this vote, the yeas are 52, the nays are 47. This bill, as amended, is passed.
And joining me now with more, NTD's political correspondent Chris Bobb. Chris, thanks for being here. Break down for us what this bill actually covers, because wasn't ICE and CBP already funded?
They were already funded through the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, if you remember that one, $170 million. You had $45 billion for detention. You had another $30 billion for hiring and training of agents and also related expenses. There's a lot of those in Congress. But this really is a journey that Congress took us on for the past couple months because they were trying to fund ICE and Customs and Border Protection like they normally would. And the Democrats had a lot of reforms that they wanted to get through for ICE. And some reforms were agreed to early on, and then they agreed to come to the table, and then things broke out again, and they were just at an impasse for months and months. And then Republicans decided they were going to go through reconciliation to get the 50 vote threshold that they needed in order to pass it, because usually you need 2/3 majority. So they were packing the thing with amendments. I got a notification on my phone that New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand at 5:09 or 5:10 basically said, this is a quote, "We tried everything to try to get this, first the anti-weaponization fund done away with, but also to get rid of the bill, because Democrats in lockstep voted against it, with the exception of, on the Republican side, Lisa Murkowski, who joined them from Alaska. Essentially, they had money, but they wanted to get it funded into the end of Trump's term, until 2029, and that's what they succeeded in.
And in the House, do you think Speaker Mike Johnson can hold Republicans together and pass the bill?
Yeah, well, he's already noted that he wants to get it done next week when they reconvene. I think he will have a much easier time in the House, even though they have a very slim majority, but there's some other members that have voiced that they would support the bill. We'll see how that goes. It's probably going to look like one of these sessions again, but we'll wait and see. Everything you played earlier was while we were going on the show yesterday, when we were talking, this was still being amended and voted on And I think a lot of the senators are probably sleeping now. They're very happy, but I think a lot of the people in the House are looking at the clock knowing their time is coming soon.
All right, well, on that note, Chris, thanks for joining us. And joining me now with more, Ammon Blair, a senior fellow at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Ammon has over 2 decades of experience as a U.S. Border Patrol agent and U.S. Army officer. Ammon, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you. First, how significant is this new funding?
It's going to be quite significant. The reason being, we don't want to repeat what happened in the first Trump administration. If you remember, right around midterms, we actually lost the midterms and we lost both the House and the Senate. All the money that was appropriated for border security, we were not allowed to use it for border security. We had to use it for holding migrants in our facilities, for anything but border security. And that was when the migrant caravans were also coming up in 2019. The Trump administration, as well as those in Congress, did not want that happening again. We want to be prepared just in case there is a mishap and we do lose the midterms. In case of that, we don't want an invasion to come, for them to make an incursion, and for us to be forced to release them into the United States because we don't have the detention facility capacity. We don't have the capacity to stop them at the border, and we don't have the capacity to do the entire process or removal cycle process.
And given that, what would be the most important part of this in your view? What's the biggest benefit that Americans may see?
I would say the biggest benefit is actually the 287G program within the ICE portion of the bill. Look, there's very few ICE officers compared to local law enforcement. Here in Texas, we have about a little over 80,000 law enforcement personnel. We have over 2,000 law enforcement agencies. And you think about that in terms of the capacity and capability to not only identify, but apprehend, transport, detain, and then also remove millions of illegal aliens. That is not possible unless we have our local law enforcement, state as well as county, do this effort. It must be a multi-agency, multi-jurisdictional plan going forward, but it takes funding to do so. Local law enforcement, they do not have the resources, manpower, or ability to do this without the assistance of the federal government, and this is going to provide that through the Trump administration.
And Ammon, there's a lot of focus on sanctuary cities right now. In fact, the shooting that led to a shutdown and no immigration funding happened in a sanctuary city. In your view, are they driving up costs to run ICE effectively?
Yes, ma'am. Unfortunately, ICE and Border Patrol in those regions are also having to do really counterinsurgency. What I saw as an Army personnel overseas, they're having to counter an insurgency in the streets at the same time as trying to conduct immigration enforcement, which forces us to push more resources into those areas. Another thing that is also costing us a lot more is actually a lack of law enforcement help in red jurisdictions. Look, there's a sin of commission that they're doing in sanctuary cities, but there's also a sin of omission that they're doing in red counties and red states, when they're refusing to work with ICE, where they're refusing to work with the Trump administration. You can see that. You can see that the Sheriff's Association in Idaho, for example, were refused to have 287G mandated for the entire state. So it's not just sanctuary cities or blue states. It's kind of a nationwide issue.
And digging into one of your earlier points, immigration policy or how it's carried out appears to have changed a lot between the Trump administration and Biden administrations. What do you think were the most effective changes?
You know, that is the idea and concept that immigration enforcement is actually not a crime-only enterprise. Immigration enforcement's primary duty and responsibility is to protect the idea of citizenship and also the legal boundaries of citizenship, as well as the sovereignty of the nation and state. That means every inadmissible alien found inside the United States must be identified, apprehended, detained, and removed from this country. That is the difference. In the very beginning of the Obama administration, he was doing that, and then he amended it, and then went after the worst, or those who committed crimes outside of the crime of illegal entry. And then under the Biden administration, it was just a complete free-for-all. He facilitated the invasion. And so under the Trump administration, it's different. We're going back to the original reason why immigration enforcement exists.
And in both administrations, immigration officials pushed back against lawmakers, saying changes require new legislation. Now, you've actually worked a lot with developing Texas border policy. Do you agree this is needed on the federal level, and what sort of legislation is top of mind?
Yes, really, at first, if we could just adhere to our rule of law as it currently stands. I think one of the biggest misnomers or misunderstandings right now is that anyone who comes into the United States does not have the right to have asylum. Asylum is a discretionary effort. It's a discretionary thing for those who have come into the United States. So say like you come to the border and you make it on our time, you have the right to claim asylum. You have the right to have a credible fear, but that doesn't give you the right to go through the same proceedings. You are the federal government still has the authority to detain you and also remove you as well. And so, unfortunately, inside the United States, we think that just because they are here, they are present, that they can actually subvert the rule of law. So really, we have the rules and laws on our books already. What we're working at in Texas is to try to match the immigration laws that the federal government already has at the state level. So no matter who is president, we can conduct immigration enforcement at our level.
Ammon Blair, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Matt, for having me.